there. All right, we are doing lesson 5 problem set for module 6. And you can see today I have some strips and we're going to be doing some measuring. So rather than put the information in here, I really wanted us to kind of review ruler work because we are actually going to get into some fractional parts that we haven't really explored on the ruler today. So let's take a look. It says to measure straws, but I did strips because I didn't have a lot of straws. And the first one, we're just going to measure, but we're going to be identifying, ooh, that's not a great view. Maybe if I move it down so you can see the white, that's a little better. All right, so when I'm measuring this first strip, I can see that this first strip is 6, but we're actually going to take a look at these smaller increments of measurement. So if you look at the ruler on, let's see, boy, this is tough with the purple, dark purple ruler. This here is marking about right here. So I have 6, and then I have a tick mark and a tick mark. And if you remember, right here, if you look real carefully, this is our quarter tick mark. And then if you look here, you can kind of see the halfway point between 6 and 7. So half is the long tick mark, and then the shorter one is a quarter. So when I'm measuring this strip, I'm basically in between the 6th and a quarter tick mark. So measured to the nearest inch, this strip is 6. Measured to the nearest half inch, which is all the way over here, it is not at this halfway point. So it's still closest to 6. Now measured to the nearest quarter inch, that's right here, right? Here's the halfway mark, and half of a half is a quarter, a fourth. So that's right here. So this is actually closer to 6 1/4 because it's at this middle line. So I have 1 tick here, 1 tick here, 1 tick here, and there's my quarter. So when we are at the midline, we round up, right? All right, continuing on. Let's see if I can get this a little bit better workspace. Some things translate awesome on the video and some do not. All right, well, let's take a look at this little green guy here and see if we can see a little better down there. All right, so looking at this one, I am just shy of 1 tick mark to the 2. So to the nearest inch, this straw is closest to 2. Now to the nearest half inch, here's the 1, here's the 2, and the halfway mark is in between. So to the nearest half inch, it's either going to be closer to 1, closer to 1 1/2, or closer to 2. Which is it closest to? That's right, it's closest to the 2. You can see it's much closer than to the 2 than the halfway point here. So this would also be 2. Even though it's measured to the nearest half inch, it's still closest to the next whole number, right? Which is still a halfway interval. To the nearest quarter inch, I have this mark here. I have 2, here's 3 quarters. Here's 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 quarter, and it's still not closer to that 3 quarters than it is to 2. So this one, because it's so close to 2 inches, it's just straight 2s all the way across. All right, I'm going to do maybe 1 or 2 more. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to review the ruler, like I said. So with this purple strip, I have 4. It is, let's call that 4 1/4 because I have a 4 here, a 5 here. My halfway point is here. Half of a half is a fourth. So this measures directly at 4 1/4. So that's to the nearest quarter inch. Now to the nearest half inch, I'm going to kind of work backwards here. To the nearest half inch, here's a quarter, here's the halfway point, and here's the whole number 4. Well, what do we do if we're at the halfway point? We round up, So we actually would round this to 4.5. And then finally, to the nearest inch, it's either 4 or it's 5. Well, it's clearly closer to the 4. So we would put that here. All right, that should give us enough data to answer the questions below. It says, blank's straw is the shortest straw I measured. So the shortest one we measured was straw 2. So straw 2. Straw is the shortest straw I measured. It measures blank inches. It measures 2 inches. Blank straw is the longest straw I measured, which was 6, which was my straw. And it measures 6 inches. Choose the straw from your chart that was most accurately measured with 1/4 inch intervals on your ruler. How do you know the 1/4 intervals are the most accurate for measuring this straw? All right, so the one that hit right on the 4th mark was this straw. So straw 3 measured exactly 4 1/4 inch. How do I know these intervals are the most accurate for measuring this straw? Well, they are our smallest interval we're measuring with. Since they are the smallest interval we are measuring with, it makes it the most accurate. Right? And it happened to land right on that line, but the smaller unit of measurement you use, the more precise your measurement will be. All right, let's take a look at the second page. And here we have Jenna marks a 5-inch paper strip into equal parts shown below. Label the whole and half-inch strips, half inches on the paper strip. So remember, a 5-inch paper strip, that means we're looking at 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch, right? So here, if we're starting with the wholes, this is just like the number lines and the fractions on the number lines that we had worked on in a previous module. So our 0, right, is really right here. Now, 1 inch would put us here. This would be 1. 2 inches would be here, right? Just like on the ruler we were just looking at. This would put us at 4 inches, and this would put us at 5. Now, the half inches would go here, right? So here we have a half. Then we would have 1. 1.5 would be here. 2, this would be 2.5. Here, then here, this would also be a half. Here and here. Make sure that's kind of the expectation here. Yeah. All right, so now it says estimate to draw the 1/4 inch marks. I keep saying quarter, right? Because if you think about a dollar, there are 4 quarters in there. So you can look at 1/4 and use the term quarter, or you can use 1/4. They mean the same thing. Estimate to draw the 1/4 inch marks on the paper strip, then fill in the blanks below. So think back to those paper folding activities that we did and that fraction unit that we covered. Half of a half. So if you have a strip of paper folded in half, right? There are your halves. You have 2 halves making 1 whole. And if I were to fold that in half again, now I have created how many parts? Half of a half creates 4 sections, which creates fourths. 4 fourths fill the whole strip. So we're going to take our halves and we're going to cut them into fourths. Okay, there we go. So each half is going to be cut into a fourth. And we're going to do that all the way down. Just put your little tick marks, add in your fourths. And I'll review one thing. Yeah, it's a little time consuming, but it's really good review because it's been a little while since we've worked with fractions, right? So just to give you an opportunity to check, if you have count by fourths till you get to the whole number, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 lands you at 1, right? So remember, any unit fraction that we are working in, there should be that many number of parts within the whole. If we were to check the half, it would be 1/2, then 2 halves, right? 2 halves equal 1 whole. 1 inch is equal to how many half inches? So again, 1/2, 2 halves. So count those jumps if you don't recognize the fraction right away. 1 inch is equal to how many quarter inches? Well, let's count all the tick marks by quarters. 1/4, 2/4, you still land on the half. 3/4, 4/4. So 4 quarter inches. 1/2 inch is equal to how many quarter inches? Well, that means I'm going to jump to here, but count by fourths. 1/4, 2/4. 2 quarter inches are equal to 1/2 inch. Describe how Jenna could use this paper strip to measure an object that is longer than 5 inches. Well, if she had this, right, and we've done this in the classroom before, if I'm measuring something longer than my ruler, right, let's say I was measuring something off the paper and it ended right here, I could make a mark, couldn't I? And then I could reset back at 0 and add those two measurements together. So Jenna can do the same. She can measure and make a mark where the strip ends and then restart at that mark and add the measurements together. Okay, so for example, if I were trying to measure this big water bottle, right, I would take my ruler. Oh, it's almost exactly 12, but let's say it was even longer, right? I would make a little mark and then take my ruler, start at that mark, add on the extra 6 inches or 4 inches that it was to the 12 when my ruler ran out and get my total. Sari says her pencil measures 8/2 inches. Bart disagrees and says it measures 4 inches. Explain to Bart why the two measurements are the same in the space below. Well, if we write this as a fraction, 8/2 inches, and Bart disagrees and says it measures 4 inches, how could we prove that they are actually the same? Well, what do we know about fractions? What does this bar represent? This bar represents division. That is exactly right, which means that when your denominator is smaller than your numerator. We call it an improper fraction or a fraction greater than 1. So how many 2's are in 8? 8 divided by 2 equals 4. They are both right. Right? So here would be an equation to demonstrate it. And if you needed a model, here's our 4 wholes. Right? This is 1 whole, 2 wholes. Well, I don't want to count that. Okay, each of these are a whole. And then if we were to cut them in halves, right? This is a total of 4 inches. This would be 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 halves. All right. I know it's going to be a lot of review and having to kind of think back in your fraction mental file. So if you need to pause and review the video a couple times, that's what it's there for. All right. Have fun with it. Don't worry. It's there. You guys got all that information in there. It's just been a little while since we've accessed it.